Welcome to episode 13 of Ship of the Week. The United States, the destination for many during the era of immigrant ships, fostered a perhaps less lucrative steamship industry than the other great powers, but by no means did that prevent it from producing significant liners of its own. The American line, a U.S.-flagged subsidiary of what was in the 19th century known as the International Navigation Company, ordered two large Atlantic liners that became SS St. Louis and St. Paul. St. Louis, launched by William Cramp and Sons at Philadelphia in 1894 and christened by First Lady Frances Cleveland, bore two quadruple expansion engines depicted here in the Philadelphia shipyards prior to installation, which gave St. Louis and her sister a top speed of about 20 knots, much to the line's satisfaction, which previously could not manage weekly Atlantic service. Following the outbreak of the Spanish-American War, the liner was requisitioned by the United States Navy and commissioned, like countless liners before and since, as an auxiliary cruiser, in which guise she spent time severing undersea cables between Spanish Caribbean holdings, as well as shelling of Guantanamo Bay in June of 1898. USS St. Louis decommissioned from the Navy in September of 1898 and returned to American line. Nearly 2 decades of profitable passenger service followed, until a series of dominoes toppled in Europe and the Atlantic grew steadily more hostile even to neutral merchant ships. St. Louis was armed with light guns and began carrying Navy personnel to protect her by early 1917, shortly before an official declaration of war by the United States Congress. The early months of the war were spent in continued but uneasy passenger service, occasionally engaging German submarines, reportedly colliding with one in May in the proximity of the British Isles. This illustration is not St. Louis. The following year, St. Louis was handed over to the U.S. Navy for the second time in her career, assuming the name USS Louisville and undergoing trooping operations. Finally beginning those operations in October of 1918, she was just in time to start shuttling U.S. and Canadian servicemen home. Depicted here, the 351st Field Artillery, an African-American unit, sails for home aboard Louisville in early 1919. During St. Louis's conversion back to passenger liner service at Hoboken, a cutting torch started a fire on the 8th of January 1920 that by the following day had essentially obliterated everything above the main deck, and St. Louis settled to the bottom of the harbor, where she would remain until eventually sold to shipbreakers in Italy in 1925.